Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam to all the Vaishnavas listening to me. Today we'll start from the 6th question of the chapter called Spiritual World from Sambandha Part. Before that, let us offer our prayers at the lotus feet of Srila Gurudev and all our previous acharyas. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त श्रीराधकान्त नमोस्तुते। तद्काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा वाञ्छाकल्पितरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो श्रीवैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Let us start with the 6th question, which is, what is the spiritual world made of? What do the desire trees and Kamadhenu give? Answer is, just as Maya builds this mundane universe with the 5 material elements, so the spiritual Chit potency has built the spiritual world of transcendental gems. The Chintamani, which serves as the material in the building of the abode of Supreme Lord of Goloka, is a far rarer and more agreeable entity than the philosopher's stone. The purpose tree yields only the fruits of piety, wealth, fulfillment of desire and liberation. But the purpose trees in the abode of Krishna bestow innumerable fruits in the shape of checkered divine love. Kamadhenus or cows yielding the fulfillment of desire give milk when they are milked, but the Kamadhenus of Goloka pour forth oceans of milk in the shape of fountain of love, showering transcendental bliss that does away with the hunger and thirst of all pure devotees. 7th question is, can the living entity understand that the spiritual world exists within the material world but remains untouched by matter? Answer is, poor human understanding cannot possibly make out how extensive tri-quadrantal, which is beyond human comprehension, can be accommodated in the material world universe of uniquadrantal disclosure. Gokula is a spiritual plane, hence its condescendent position in the religion of material space, time, etc. is in no way restricted but unlimitedly manifested with its full boundless propriety. 8th question is, are all the ingredients of Gokula present in Goloka? Answer is, the distinction of paramourship or concubinage, of the varietedness of the respective rasas of all different persons, the soil, water, river, hill, portico, bower, cows, etc. All the features of Gokula exist in Goloka and disposed in an appropriate manner. 9th question is, what is the difference between the nature of the spiritual world and the material world? Answer is, in the transcendental realm there is no past and future, but only the unalloyed and immutable present time. In the transcendental sphere there is no distinction between the object and its qualities, and no such identity as is found in the limited mundane region. Hence, those qualities that seem to be apparently contradictory in the light of mundane conception, limited by the time and space, exist in agreeable and dainty concordance in the spiritual realm. 10th question is, how does Krishna enjoy his pastimes in the spiritual world of opulence? Answer is, Krishna manifests his internal energy in the form of Lakshmis in the spiritual world of opulence and enjoys with them in the mood of Swakiya Rasa. 11th question is, how and with whom does Krishna enjoy his pastimes in Goloka? Answer is, in Goloka, Krishna separates his internal energy into hundreds and thousands of gopis and eternally enjoys pastimes by causing them to forget Swakiya Ras. 12th question is, what position do the devotees of different rasas attain in the spiritual world? Answer is, in discussing rasa, we meet with 5 kinds of devotion or service: Shanta or unattached, Dasya or pertaining to reverential willing service, Sakhya or friendship, Vatsalya or parental love, and Shringara or conjugal love. The devotees surcharged with the ideas of their respective service serve Krishna eternally and ultimately reach the goal of their respective ideals. They attain the real nature of their self, befitting their respective rasas, their glories, conveyances, seats benefiting their sacred service, and transcendental qualities of ornaments, enhancing the beauty of the real nature. Those who are advocates of Shantarasa attain the region of Brahma Paramatma, the seat of eternal peace. Those of Dasya Rasa get to Vaikuntha, the spiritual majestic abode of Srinarayana. Those of Sakhya, Vatsalya and Madhurya Rasa or conjugal love attain Golokadhama, Krishna's abode above Vaikuntha. With this, we finish 24th chapter and move on to 25th chapter, which is called Vaishnavism. First question of this chapter is, how does one recognize a Vaishnava? Answer is, a Vaishnava is not recognized by his acceptance or rejection of Varnashrama or his appearance. Devotional service of Krishna is the only indication of a Vaishnava. One should carefully see that a person possesses the required amount of devotion to Krishna before one accepts him as a Vaishnava. Second question is, what is Vaishnavism? Answer is, the truth of Vaishnavism cannot be realized by philosophical discussions, intellectual language or proper description. By taking words from the dictionary and putting them together does not make Vaishnavism wonderful. Vaishnavism is the awakening of one's rasa through the process of bhajana by taking shelter at the lotus feet of the spiritual master. Third question is, who is a Vaishnava? Who is a better Vaishnava? Who is the best Vaishnava? Answer is, as long as a person commits offences against the chanting of Lord's holy name, the pure name does not appear to him. When he seldom commits offences against the holy name, the reflection of the pure name appears to him. This is the Namabhasa stage, wherein all the sinful reactions are destroyed. When sinful reactions are destroyed, his heart becomes pure. Then he does not get a chance to commit offences against the holy name. When a person chants the holy name and is rarely offensive, he is a Vaishnava. When a person chants without offence, he is a better Vaishnava. When the Hiladini potency arises in a person, he becomes the best Vaishnava. Fourth question is, what is the difference between a Vaishnava, a better Vaishnava and the best Vaishnava? Answer is, a Vaishnava who is attached to the chanting of the Lord's holy names offenselessly is a Vaishnava follower of Sri Chaitanya's lotus feet. Occasional cultivation of the holy names is the role of a Vaishnava. Constant cultivation of the holy names is the role of a better Vaishnava. The best Vaishnava is he by whose association one is induced to chant the pure names of the Lord. Everyone's duty is to associate with these saintly persons. Fifth question is, how great is a Vaishnava? Answer is, the greatness of a Vaishnava depends on the amount of attachment he has for the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. Sixth question is, among the introspective persons, what is the difference between a Kanishta Adhikari, a Madhyama Adhikari and an Uttama Adhikari? The answer is, the Introspective Jiva is divided into three categories: Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttama, meaning neophyte, intermediate, and advanced. The introspective neophyte, the Kanishta Adhikari, rejects demigod worship and worships only Krishna, but with material motivations. He is inexperienced in understanding the spiritual identities of himself, Lord Krishna, and the pure devotee of the Lord. Though simple and naive, he is not offensive. He is just preoccupied with himself. Therefore, the neophytes are not considered pure Vaishnavas, though they are certainly to be seen as Vaishnava Praya or resembling Vaishnavas. The intermediate introspective Jiva, the Madhyama Adhikari, is a pure devotee and is very firmly situated in devotion. The advanced introspective Jiva, the Uttama Adhikari, so much can be said about him. He has reached a state of perfect equanimity. One cannot be truly introspective unless one knows the equal position of the holy name and Krishna himself. The introspective Jiva automatically has single-minded faith in the Supreme Lord. Seventh question is, what is the position of a Madhyama Adhikari? Answer is, a Madhyama Adhikari is subordinate to the Uttama Adhikari and a benefactor of the Kanishta Adhikari. Eighth question is, to which category does a person who chants the holy names belongs to? Answer is, a person who chants the holy name of the Lord belongs immediately to the Madhyama platform. Ninth question, by which qualities is the status of a Vaishnava ascertained? Answer is, in the teachings of Sriman Mahaprabhu, there are two principal instructions: developing a taste for the chanting of Lord's holy names and displaying compassion to the fallen souls. The greatness of a Vaishnava depends on the extent he possesses these qualities. There is no need to endeavor for other good qualities. All good qualities of a Vaishnava automatically manifest in a Vaishnava who endeavors for these two qualities. 10th question is, when does a person become qualified to be called a Vaishnava? Answer is, when a person graduates from the Kanishta platform by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, he is fit to be called a Vaishnava. At that time, his compassion towards the fallen souls arises. 11th question is, how does one measure the different levels of Vaishnavas? Answer is, the renunciate Vaishnavas should not think that they are more respectable than the Grihastha Vaishnavas. One should know that their difference in the respect among the Vaishnavas lies only between the Uttama Adhikari and Madhyama Adhikari. Both Uttama Adhikaris and Madhyama Adhikaris are found among the Grihasthas. This rule also applies to the renunciate Vaishnavas. The glories of the renunciate Vaishnavas are that they have given up the association of women, greed for money, and bodily pleasures. The Grihastha Vaishnavas have special glories. Many of them work hard to earn money, and after serving Krishna, they serve Grihastha and Sannyasi Vaishnavas. Whether one is Grihastha or a Sannyasi, the principal cause of respect is the attainment of devotional service. One should be respected as a Vaishnava according to one's advancement in the devotional service. There is no other cause to distinguish the level of a Vaishnava. 12th question is, does one's position as a Vaishnava depend on Varnashrama, high birth, opulence, scriptural knowledge, or beauty? Answer is, one who has a devotion is a Vaishnava, whether he is Grihastha, Sannyasi, rich, poor, learned, foolish, weak, or strong. 13th question is, how many special qualities determine a Vaishnava? Among them, which is the primary symptom? Answer is, a Vaishnava is recognized by 26 qualities. Among these, the quality of full surrender to Krishna is the primary symptom of a Vaishnava. 14th question is, if a Vaishnava possesses the primary symptom, does he possess the secondary symptoms? If a person who is fully surrendered to Krishna has discrepancies, how should he be treated? Answer is, undeviating surrender to Lord Krishna is the Swarupa Lakshana, natural characteristic of devotional service. Whoever possesses this quality will soon find that the other symptoms come to him unfailingly. If the marginal symptoms have not reached full maturity in a surrendered sadhu and some serious discrepancies in his character are visible, he is still to be respected as a sadhu or saintly soul. 15th question is, what symptom distinguishes the quality of a Vaishnava? Answer is, the 25 kinds of secondary qualities certainly manifest in proportion to the attainment of devotional service. The more devotional services increases, the more these qualities increases. Where these secondary qualities are absent, it should be understood that the devotional service is less. This is only symptom by which one can distinguish the quality of a Vaishnava. 16th question is, what are the different kinds of devotees according to their moods? Answer is, according to their moods, the devotees are divided into three categories: the devotees who mainly preach, the devotees who mainly practice, and the devotees who practice and preach. If one considers the Uttama Adhikaris, Madhyama Adhikaris, and Kanishta Adhikaris, one can understand that the devotees who practice and preach are the best. The devotees who only practice are Kanishta Adhikaris, and the devotees who only preach are Madhyama Adhikaris. 17th question is, what differences exist between a Kanishta Adhikari, a Madhyama Adhikari, and an Uttama Adhikari? Answer is, one who is expert in scriptural reasoning and is always firmly determined, having mature faith, is an Uttama Adhikari in devotional service. One who is not particularly expert in scriptural reasoning yet possesses firm faith in a Madhyama Adhikari in devotional service. One who somehow or other developed some faith but has not taken shelter of scriptural reasonings is a Kanishta Adhikari. If Kanishta Adhikaris associate with devotees and keep faith in the words of scriptures, they can also gradually become mature Vaishnavas. 18th question is, what is the symptom of a mundane devotee? Answer is, before the eyes of the people, Kanishta Adhikaris accept a traditional family guru or worship the Lord's deity after taking initiation into Vishnu mantras with worldly faith. In other words, they are mundane devotees, not pure devotees. 19th question is, should a Madhyama Adhikari discriminate between superior and inferior Vaishnavas? Answer is, one should not discriminate thinking this Vaishnava is good or a Madhyama. Only an Uttama Adhikari can do so. If a Madhyama Adhikari discriminates like this, he will become an offender. 20th question is, what is the danger for Kanishta Adhikaris? Answer is, because Kanishta Adhikaris cannot discriminate between the different classes of Vaishnavas, they often become unfortunate. 21st question is, when does a Kanishta Adhikari become qualified to serve the Vaishnavas and purely chant the holy name of the Lord? Answer is, in the neophyte stage, a Kanishta Adhikari engages in Namabhasa or chanting a reflection of the holy name. By this chanting, his anarthas are destroyed and he becomes qualified to serve the Vaishnavas and purely chant the Lord's holy name. 22nd question is, who is qualified to serve the Vaishnavas? Is one being partial if one discriminates in one's service to the Vaishnavas? Answer is, only a Madhyama Adhikari is qualified to respect and serve the Vaishnavas. A Madhyama Adhikari should serve three kinds of Vaishnavas: those who chant Krishna's holy names once, those who chant Krishna's holy name constantly, and those who cause one to chant Krishna's holy names just by seeing them. According to the different classes of Vaishnavas, a Vaishnava, a superior Vaishnava, and a topmost Vaishnava, one should serve them accordingly. 23rd question is, should one discriminate while making friendship with the Vaishnavas, bestowing mercy on the Vaishnavas, and neglecting the non-devotees? Answer is, it is the duty of your devotees who are situated on the platform of Madhyama Adhikari to love God, to make friendship with pure devotees, to bestow mercy on subordinates, and to neglect envious people. They behave in this way according to scripture. To discriminate while making a friendship according to the degree of friend's devotional service is proper. To discriminate while bestowing mercy according to the degree of the ignorant people's simplicity is proper. To discriminate while neglecting an envious person according to the degree of his envy is proper. 24th question is, when does a spiritual ego of a living entity arise? Answer is, when a living entity realizes that he is a pure spiritual particle, his spiritual ego naturally arises. He identifies himself as the servant of Krishna. At that time, the intelligence in its pure form rejects materialism and accepts spiritualism. Then the living entity has no other desire than the service of Krishna. 25th question is, what is the duty and symptom of a Vaishnava? Answer is, to give up the association of the non-devotees is the duty of Vaishnava, and to fully surrender to the holy names of Krishna is the symptom of a Vaishnava. 26th question is, who is a Vaishnava and who is almost a Vaishnava? Answer is, if a conditioned soul purely chants the holy names of the Lord with faith, he is a Vaishnava. A person who practices Namabhasa is almost a Vaishnava, and by the mercy of the holy names, he will gradually become purified. 27th question is, are the Vaishnavas followers of the Lord's energy? Answer is, the Vaishnavas are the followers of Lord's energy. They are under the subordination of Sri Radhika, who is the personification of Lord's spiritual potency. 28th question is, who are engaged in welfare activities? Answer is, although a living entity does not specifically gain anything from the advancement of the world, if one examines the lives of devotees, one will find that devotees only do welfare activities. 29th question is, which qualities manifest in a devotee as the companions of devotional service? Answer is, when one's devotional service is awakened, the following qualities are automatically and simultaneously manifest: purity, gravity, peacefulness, truthfulness, friendliness, humility, simplicity, equanimity, indifference to sin, compassion for all living entities, refraining from sinful activities, and abandoning insignificant material desires. 30th question is, what is the complete and auspicious form of life? Answer is, the life of a devotee is the perfection of the human form of life. It is complete and all auspicious. It is the only spiritual truth found in the material world. 31st question is, can a devotee conceal himself? Answer is, no matter how much a devotee hates name and fame and gives up bad association, he can never remain hidden from anyone because of his devotional effulgence. 32nd question is, what is the nature of a Vaishnava? Answer is, as long as his family life remains favorable to devotional service, a Vaishnava remains soft-hearted towards his wife and children. When his family life becomes unfavorable to devotional service, his heart becomes hard and he leaves his crying wife and children forever. 33rd question is, when there is friction between karma and janana, which side does the Vaishnava take? Answer is, the Vaishnava remains a neutral spectator during the fight between karma kand and janana kand. 34th question is, when is a Brahman qualified to accept Vaishnava initiation and when has he fallen from his position as a Vaishnava? Answer is, when a Brahman receives Vaishnava Gayatri Mantra, which is the mother of the Vedas, he becomes an initiated Vaishnava. If he later takes non-Vedic initiation, he falls from his position as a Vaishnava. 35th question is, what is the scale of measuring love for Sri Gaura? Answer is, the more one has love for Sriman Mahaprabhu, the more one will try to follow his order. 36th question is, who is a real devotee? Answer is, if one is internally a Vaishnava and externally a materialist, one is counted among the devotees. 37th question is, who is a real sadhu? Answer is, a real sadhu is he who by good fortune has awakened his own nature by the association with another sadhu. 38th question is, are the birth and activities of the Vaishnava similar to those of the living entities who are forced to enjoy fruits of their karma? Answer is, the appearance and activity of the Vaishnavas appear like that of the mundane fruitive workers, but they are completely different. 39th question is, what is the difference between a Vaishnava, a Karmi and a Janani? Answer is, the difference between a Vaishnava and a Karmi or Janani is huge. The Karmis engage in fruitive activities and attain self-satisfaction. The Jananis cultivate impersonal knowledge and attain liberation. Devotees who engage in pure devotional service as their sadhana are Rasika Bhaktas. When these great devotees who know the science of devotional service attain perfection, their devotional service becomes nectarian love of God, emanating from the lotus feet of Krishna. 40th question is, can a Vaishnava be bound or destroyed? Answer is, no one can destroy one whom Krishna wants to protect. The strength of regulations cannot influence the devotees. What to speak of bondage of regulations? Nothing other than the bondage of love for the Lord can bind the devotees. 41st question is, how should one pray to go to Vrindavan, following in the footsteps of the Vaishnavas? Answer is, O Saragrahi Vaishnava soul, thou art an angel fair, lead me on to Vrindavana, and the Spirit's power declare. There rests my soul from matter free, upon my lover's arms. Eternal peace and Spirit's love are all my chanting charms. 42nd question is, what are the characteristics of a perfect soul and a practitioner? Answer is, those who have attained the mood of the gopis are perfect beings, and those who follow them are practitioners. Therefore, the learned who know the absolute truth accept two types of sadhus, perfect beings and practitioners. With that, we finish the 25th chapter and move on to 26th chapter, which is called Pure Vaishnavas. First question of this chapter is, what is the nature of a pure devotee? Answer is, simplicity, determination and exclusiveness are the characteristics of a pure devotee. He never approves of any topic that is opposed to devotional service, just to keep people happy. The pure devotees are always neutral. Second question is, what is the character of a Vaishnava? Who is qualified to be called a Vaishnava? Answer is, the character of a Vaishnava is sinless and no part of his character is fit for hiding. Simplicity is the life of a Vaishnava. He always teaches others by setting his own examples. Unless his character is pure, he is not fit to be called a Vaishnava. Third question is, does a great personality who worships Krishna in his spiritual body give up the rules and regulations? Answer is, do swan-like persons engage only in spiritual activities and neglect material activities? No. Swan-like persons worship Krishna in the mood of one who is enjoyed, and they boldly take care of the external body. Eating, sleeping, enjoying, traveling, exercising, protecting society, protecting the body, riding in vehicles, engaging in industrial enterprises, and walking in the open air are seen in the lives of swan-like persons. Fourth question is, during his life, can a swan-like Vaishnava work rather than worship Hari? Answer is, the swan-like Vaishnavas valiantly remain and work among men. They are the shelter of women and are respected by them. They take part in social activities and gain much experience. They teach their children Arthashastra and thus become known as headmasters. Fifth question is, why is dry renunciation not pleasing to Krishna? How does Sri Hari bestow his mercy on one who favorably cultivates devotional service to Krishna? and who is devoid of material enjoyment, fruitive activities, and mental speculation? Answer is, the role of sannyasa is a sort of karma befitting an ashrama and is not pleasing to Krishna when it aims at liberation. Sannyasis receive the fruits of their karma, and even if they are unmotivated, their karma ends in Atma Mamata, self-pleasure. Pure devotees always serve Krishna by gratifying his senses. They forsake all attempts of karma and janana, being free from all desires except to serve Krishna. Krishna has fully destroyed the karma, its desires and nescience of those devotees. Sixth question is, who is best among those who follow the principles of Varnashrama Dharma? Does an unalloyed devotee of Vishnu accept the rules and regulations of Karma Kanda? Answer is, it has been said that amongst those who follow Varnashrama Dharma, a devotee of Lord Vishnu is the best. A devotee who gives up eternal and occasional activities that are in the mode of passion and ignorance, such as offering oblations to the forefathers and worshipping the demigods. On the other hand, if an unalloyed devotee's behavior and activities are like those of Shudras and outcasts, still it is to be understood that he will give up all the activities that cause his material bondage. Seventh question is, can a pure Vaishnava born in any caste become a qualified Brahman? Answer is, it does not matter in which family one is born. If one becomes a pure Vaishnava, one automatically becomes qualified Brahman. Eighth question is, does a Vaishnava born from any family have a right to teach the Vedas? Answer is, a person who has developed unflinching devotion to Krishna is eligible to become a teacher of the Vedas, which reveal the truth. Ninth question is, without the mercy of Krishna, can one attain liberation simply by cultivating knowledge? Does a pure devotee pray for liberation? Answer is, despite following various methods such as performing fruitive activities, cultivating knowledge, practicing yoga and undergoing austerities, no one can attain liberation. That is why persons who are on the path of knowledge take shelter of the reflection of devotional service to Krishna. The authorities of pure devotional service do not pray for liberation, but liberation herself humbly tries to serve the pure devotees. 10th question is, should a Vaishnava pray for worldly opulence or heavenly pleasures? Answer is, the kingdom on earth, the beauty of heaven, and the sovereignty over the material world are never the subject of Vaishnava prayer. 11th question is, how does a self-realized surrendered soul worship Hari? Does he have any pride for his material possessions? Answer is, a self-realized person having no material assets knows that attachment to Krishna is the essence of life. Therefore, he gives up the desire for material enjoyment and liberation. He maintains his life, his family in a simple way and constantly serves Hari through his eternal spiritual body. Such a person abandons pride of his beauty, high birth and physical strength and always engages in devotional service. 12th question is, who are the highest type of practitioners? Answer is, the highest type of practitioners are those who believe that all the processes of sadhan bhakti, taking shelter of the Lord's holy name, awards one all perfection. 13th question is, are the arguments or loving quarrels among the pure Vaishnavas comprehensible to mundane intelligence? Answer is, what the unalloyed devotees of the Supreme Lord says is all true and is independent of any consideration of unwholesome pros and cons. There is, however, the element of mystery in their verbal controversies. Those whose judgment is made of mundane stuff, being unable to enter into the spirit of all loving controversies among pure devotees, due to their own want of unalloyed devotion, are apt to impute to the devotees their own defects of partisanship and opposing views. 14th question is, do the pure Vaishnavas ever endeavor to protect their independence? What kind of service to Krishna have they achieved? Answer is, a Vaishnava should always carefully remember that he is a servant of the lover of the gopis. He is always dependent and never independent. He cannot have independence because he is sold his nature of independence in the form of being a servant of the Lord. In his way, he has obtained service to Krishna. 15th question is, do pure devotees who are intoxicated by drinking the honey from the lotus feet of Krishna feel the pangs of the threefold material miseries? Answer is, pure devotees are immersed in an ocean of happiness by drinking the intoxicating beverage of service to Krishna. They do not know the pains of this world, nor do they have a trouble of any want, because they are situated in their pure bodies and have pure desires. 16th question is, what is the character of a Vaishnava? Answer is, a Vaishnava is always transcendental, faultless and blissful. He is fond of chanting the Krishna's holy name, indifferent to material enjoyment and very kind to all living entities. He is devoid of pride, expert in worshipping the Lord and detached from material objects. He is always without duplicity and is attached to relishing the eternal pastimes of the Lord. 17th question is, by whose appeal does Krishna bestow mercy? Answer is, by the appeal of the Vaishnavas, the most merciful Krishna becomes compassionate towards a sinful person like me. 18th question is, what does a pure Vaishnava pray to the Lord? Through which relationship does he appeal to the Lord to engage in his service? Answer is, the Vaishnava meekly and humbly says, Father, Master, God, friend and my husband of my soul, hallowed be thy name. I do not approach you for anything that you have already given me. I have sinned against you and I now repent and solicit your pardon. Let thy holiness touch my soul and make me free from grossness. Let my spirit be devoid meekly to your holy service in absolute love towards thee. I have called you my God, and let my soul be wrapped up in admiration at your greatness. I have addressed you as my master, and let my soul be strongly devoted to your service. I have called you my friend, and let my soul be in reverential love towards you and not in dread or fear. I have called you my husband, and let my spiritual nature be in eternal union with you, forever loving and never dreading or feeling disgust. My love, let me have strength enough to go up to you as the consort of my soul, so that we may be one in eternal love. Peace to the world. With that, we finished 26th chapter and now move on to 27th chapter, which is called Impure Vaishnavas. First question is, are offenders to the holy name pure Vaishnavas? Answer is, persons who commit offense against the holy name are never pure Vaishnavas. Thus, Sriman Mahaprabhu has distinguished them by saying that they are not pure Vaishnavas but are like Vaishnavas. Second question is, if a person is sinful in spite of externally displaying the transformation of love of God, is he a Vaishnava? Answer is, those who are sinful have not taken shelter of the holy names with undivided faith. Even if they exhibit all other symptoms, still will never accept that they have taken shelter of the holy names without deviation. Sinful persons who shed tears of love while chanting the holy name will be counted among the cheating Vaishnavas, because they are offenders at the feet of the holy name. Third question is, if external transformations of love of God are found in a Mayavadi, can he be called a Vaishnava? Answer is, the Mayavadis are pseudo-namabhasis. Therefore, they are offenders. It is very difficult for them to become pure Vaishnavas. they can never be called Vaishnavas, no matter how much reflection of love of God they manifest. Fourth question is, if a person who worships 5 gods worships Radha Krishna, can he be called a pure Vaishnava? Answer is, there are 2 types of impure Vaishnava religions. One is contaminated by karma and other by janana. The Vaishnava religion found among the Smartas is contaminated by karma. Although in this religion the followers accept initiation into Vaishnava mantras, nevertheless they establish the universal Lord Vishnu as a limb of karma. According to their opinion, Lord Vishnu is the controller of all demigods, and he is personally a part of karma and under the control of karma. Karma is not dependent on the wheel of Vishnu, rather Vishnu is dependent on the wheel of karma. In their opinion, worshipping, offering service and following rules and regulations are limbs of karma because they are in no truth higher than karma. For a long time, such Vaishnava principles of the fruitive workers have been growing on. In India, many followers of this philosophy proudly consider themselves Vaishnavas, but they do not want to accept the pure Vaishnavas as Vaishnavas. It is simply their misfortune. The Vaishnava religion contaminated by Janana is also vigorously followed in India. According to the philosophy of the Jananis, the unknown Brahman is the highest truth. In their opinion, to attain the impersonal Brahman, one needs to worship the personal forms of Surya, Ganesha, Durga, Shiva and Vishnu. When one attains perfection, the worship of these personal forms is no longer required. One ultimately merges into the existence of the impersonal Brahman. Followers of this philosophy disregard of the pure Vaishnavas, although the worship of Vishnu among the worship of 5 gods appear to be related to Vishnu or even Radha Krishna. It is not pure Vaishnava religion. If we separate such impure Vaishnava religions, the actual Vaishnava religion will manifest. Because of the influence of Kali, many people do not understand pure Vaishnava religious principles and consider impure Vaishnava religion as pure Vaishnava religion. With this, we finish today's session. My sincere obeisances at the lotus feet of Srila Gurudev and the divine couple, Sri Sri Radha Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nidai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.